In this video, I don't know how long it's going to be, but you guys are going to learn how to make a simple game using JavaScript. So let's get right into it. What I'm doing here is I just have the code on the left and then the browser on the right. You guys can code this in W3 schools or wherever you want. W3 would probably be the best one actually. Just thinking about it off the top of my head, but if you have some other way of doing it, feel free. Alright, so go ahead and just get that starter code in there, HTML, and I'm going to type in the head up top here, and alright, so basically just getting like the base stuff in here, except for this time inside the header you guys are gonna have to put some stuff in. Alright, so first of all, just add a title. This is gonna be like whatever pops up top here. So if I type in something like my game and then save it, and then I'm going to refresh, you'll see it says my game at the top. But if you guys are in W3 or something online, it'll probably stay the same. Just know that the title does that. And then we're going to want to add in these meta tag like this, and then you guys can just kind of copy this down. This is going to be a little bit long here, but what this is doing is this is making it so that the code that's going to run is going to make sure that you can play this game on browsers of any kind, and then also like if you wanted to play this on your phone or something like that, it'll work flawlessly. Okay. In the future, I'll probably actually just copy this from somewhere else. But all right, so and then just add in some style tags up here, like the CSS, and in here we're going to say canvas, curly braces, border, 1 pixel, solid, black, semicolon, and then width 100%. All right, so we just added some CSS, and we don't even have any stuff inside the HTML body yet. We don't even have the body tags, so let's add those in right now. And you guys will see what this canvas thing is in a second. We haven't done anything with canvas before, but we're going to get into that in a second here. I'm just going to add in like an H1, and I'm going to say this is like my game. You can see this is popping up immediately for me, but that's just because I have this like live view set up. It's not going to quite do the same thing for you guys, but you can hit run on W3 or whatever. And then you guys are going to want to put in this new tag called canvas, okay? So canvas ID, and I'm going to say I want an ID of my canvas, all lowercase, a width of 640, and a height of 360, and then end it like that. And you'll notice as soon as I type that in, it refreshed on my side here. Once you guys hit run, it'll do the same for you. And it made this border. This border is coming from the style canvas up here. It's just a black solid border that just kind of wraps around where the game is going to be played. Okay. All right, and then that's actually all the HTML we're going to type in to make the game. The rest of it's actually just JavaScript, and it's kind of simple. So right after the body tag, or I'm sorry, let's actually do it. Let's put it like right here inside the body a little bit. So we'll say, I'm going to say script, just like that. So that's inside the body tag. And then we're going to kind of get started here. Go ahead and type in window. So that what we're doing here is we're going to add what's known as an event listener. And this event listener is sort of like when you click on click or something, like you use an on click method, and then you have a function. That's an event listener. It's listening for when you click on something. This is similar to that, except it's like on the entire window. Okay, so window.add event listener. We're gonna say this is on load. So as soon as the game's like ready to load up, make a function, and then we're gonna put these curly braces in like that. So it should look just like this as I have it here. A little complicated, but you guys will get it. And then what we want to do is we want to add in some game constants. So we're going to say var capital game underscore width, and we're saying that this game width is equal to 640, which is the same width we have here. And we're going to say var game height is equal to 360, which is also the same thing we have on canvas there. And basically the reason why we're doing that is so we can set the height and width of the game inside of the JavaScript, so that way we can like kind of use it when we're trying to like make enemies and stuff like that. All right, then we're going to say var game live, and we're just going to say that we are currently running this game. So for game live, we're just basically saying like, yes, we're running this game. We want like the loop to keep going and keep running the game for as long as we're playing it until like we die or we finish the game or something like that, right? All right. So we got the first couple parts here. So basically, the game we're actually going to be making, I haven't even showed you guys that, is oh, not this one. This game right here. All right, so you can see it's the game that I played before, where you try and cross the blue blocks here, and sometimes you make it, sometimes you don't. Sometimes if you hit the blue block, something pops up that says like game over. But if you make it to that goal over there, then you win, right? So I'll switch back to the code here that we're going to be programming with. And so what we're going to want to do, the first couple things, I guess, we're going to want to draw or create something called the step function, okay? So inside of JavaScript and inside of the window, there's like this thing that's constantly checking for what's known as a step, and that's like, how to explain this? It's like checking to see if you're trying to play a game. All right, so like normal like web pages, they're just flat, right? They just have like, if it's google.com, it just says Google on there. It's not doing anything usually. But in the case of making a game, we want something to be constantly happening. We want animation to be going on, so we need to have steps. Like think of it as like a frame per second. Okay, so var step is equal to function like this, and curly braces. And we'll just leave it like that, and then we're going to say down here step parentheses, okay? And then it'll kind of be a while until we get some stuff on screen here, but bear with me. This, like I said, this will be kind of a long project. I'm going to say var draw is equal to function parentheses curly braces. So what draw is going to do is it's actually going to draw those blocks on the screen, like the player and the enemy. And then the last thing we need is something called the var update. So basically what update's doing is it's constantly updating the screen for like, where the enemy is going to be and where the player is going to be depending on like how often you move them, okay? And then down in the step, we want to call the draw and the update every single time. So every single time a guy moves on the screen, we need to redraw that onto the screen, and then we need to update other code and stuff. So we're going to say update parentheses and then draw parentheses. So we're calling those functions later. And then just the last thing we'll say right here is we'll say if game live, then we want to window dot request animation frame step. Okay. And what this is basically doing is it's saying like if game live. So if we're playing the game right now. If we haven't died yet, we haven't met the goal, then we want to keep playing the game and we want to go to the next animation frame step. So kind of simple stuff, kind of not. Depends on who you are. All right. So what we want to start doing now is we want to start creating like the player of the game. We're not going to quite see that player yet, but it's just like a box, just like you saw in the example there. So we're going to say var player. And we're going to make this player an object, so curly braces. And we're going to say x colon. And basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be drawing like the x and y values, so like the height, width, where it starts, where it begins. So x, we want it to start at 10 pixels. We want y of 160 pixels. So basically it's like it'll start out at 10 and then down at 160. So if like you guys remember from math, if you have like a coordinate grid system or something, usually you start like in a corner and then you go like out 3 and then up 3 and then out 3, up 3 if you're doing slope or something like that. And the canvas HTML, it starts at the top here. Basically we're just using these pixels, these 10 pixels, 160 pixels to define like where we want this to be at. So 10 pixels over, 160 pixels down, all right? And then we want the speed of this guy to basically be, we'll say we want it to be 2.5 pixels every time like a button is clicked, and then we want to say that typically this guy is not moving, so we'll say his moving is false, and then we want the box to be width of 40 and then a height of 40, just like that. All right. Probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense yet, but when you guys, when we finish here and we display it on the screen, you guys can come back to this later and kind of edit things and check out how this works. All right. So then we'll say var goal is equal to x colon. So we want this goal to be about 580 pixels. So over here on the x, so basically, we got a size of 640 on this screen. We want it to be 580, so like all the way over here. So we don't want the goal to be like in the middle or over here because that's where the player is going to start, right? And then we're going to say a y of 160. It's the same height as the player here. A width of 50, and we want a height of, we'll go with 36, just because that's what I have down in my notes as what I had before. I don't know why I made it 36, but you know, you can have that be whatever you want later on when you look at that. All right, and then go ahead and make the enemies now. So we'll say var enemies, and we're going to make an array of enemies. So array, so not the curly braces, but the flat brackets. And then in here we're going to make some curly braces, and we're going to put in the objects that we want. So we're going to say x, we want this guy to start at 100, and y, we want this guy to start at 100, and then we want the speed of this guy to be 2, and we want the width of this guy to be 40, and then we want the height of this guy to be also 40. So we're going to have like a 40 by 40 box as like the enemy. That's like what the enemy will look like, all right? And we want a couple enemies, so we're just going to copy this. I'm going to say comma, paste, comma, paste, comma, paste. That's 4 enemies. Four's fine right now. And then let's just kind of space these guys out real quick. So we want this guy to start at 200 here on the X, so it's going to be like one's right here, one's like right here. We could set this to 0. Keep the height and the width the same. This guy's going to be spaced out a little bit more, like 330, and 100 is fine. And then this guy could be 450, and 100 is fine. Except we'll speed up some of these guys. We'll make this guy 2, 2. We'll make this guy 3. And then we'll make this guy a speed of 4. So the last one on the side here is like really fast. It's kind of jumping up and down. Make it a little bit difficult for the player to make it to the end, right? All right, so we got our player, we got our goal, and we got our enemies defined. The next thing we want to do is we want to start defining the functions that will go inside of like update and draw. Okay, so let's what we're going to do now is we're going to create something called the move player, stop player. So this is kind of like how the player will be moving or not moving. Okay, so we're going to say var move player is equal to function, and just make a function, and then we're going to say player dot is moving. So we're accessing that that player up here that is moving, and we're going to say that this is now equal to true, and then we want to copy and paste this and call this one stop player. And we want to set that is moving back to false. So the reason why we're doing this is so we can just kind of call move player and stop player very quickly later on. We don't want to have to deal with writing out all this code right here. Okay. And then down here, let's just go ahead and grab the canvas, because we're going to start typing inside the update here, which is where we want to actually start kind of editing things. Let me just look at my notes here real quick. All right, so inside of, or right here, right below that stop player, we're going to say var canvas. So we're basically going to access our canvas element right now. So we're going to say document.getElementById, and we're going to just target that my canvas. Remember that canvas HTML element had an ID of my canvas up top there. And then we'll say var ctx is equal to canvas.getContext. And then switch that onto 2D just because we want to access the 2D values in this document here. And then we're going to want to target the canvas object event listener, so that way, like when we click down on the mouse, it actually moves the guy. Okay, so if we look back at the code at the game here, every time I click, every time I click on the game, it's moving my character a little bit, and we want to basically control how that works. So inside our code here, go ahead and write canvas dot add event listener, parentheses, and then we're going to say mouse down. So when they click down on the mouse, we want to move the player. So we're using that move player function right here. And then every time, and actually, you know what, we can just copy this. So we just copy this guy right here and paste it a couple times. So when they pull the mouse back up, when they stop clicking the mouse, we want to stop that player from moving. Otherwise, it'll just kind of keep moving forever. And then the second thing we want to do is if we ever want to play this game on like a phone or something, we want to use like mobile attributes. So we can say touch start and touch end. So like when you touch your iPhone or Android or something like that, it'll do the same thing that it did before. And just make sure this says stop player. All right, so the next thing we want to do is actually scroll all the way to the bottom and then right above that step here. So right in between step and then when we call the function step, go ahead and write var check collision. So basically we're going to be checking for the collision between, here I'll show you in the game. I'm going to move my guy here and then see how the box, that blue box, hit that green box right there. There's like a collision there between the two boxes. We want to check if that's happening. Now you guys will have no idea how this works because we've never gone over like an algorithm for something like this, but just copy along what I have here and you guys will see that there's some decent math that is involved here. So we're basically defining rect1, rect2 for the two rectangles. So the first square, which is the player, and the second square, which is the enemy. And we're determining like when they hit each other. So we're going to say var close on width is equal to math dot absolute. The values are the rect1 dot x value minus the rect2 dot x value, and then we're going to say that's less than or equal to just like the mathematical maximum of the rectangles. So the first rectangle, its width, and then the second rectangle, that one's width. Now this doesn't really matter that much simply because we could have just, I think, put 40 in there because all the width and heights are the same, but in case you guys want to change the size of that later on, we want to make sure that's a variable. And then we're just going to copy this line and paste it right here and then say close on height now. So that way they can hit on the top of the square and it'll work the same. And then basically we're just changing these x's to y's and the w's to h's. Or sorry, the h's. No, yeah, w's to h's. All right, and then once we have these values, just return them. So return close on width and close on height, just like that. All right, and then we can go back up to where we have this, the update function, and then we're going to want to actually call that function now. So we're going to say if, and then we can say check collision between the player, between the player and our goal, so the goal at the end. What do we want to happen? Obviously we want to stop the game and we want to declare that they won. So we'll say game live is equal to false, alert, so we're going to make an alert box that basically says you won. And then we want to reload the page, so we'll say window.location is equal to quotes, and that'll basically just reload the page for us automatically and just start the game back over. And then right after this if statement here, we're going to do some more checks. So this one we're going to be saying if player is moving. So up there we define like when we click down we want the player to be moving. So if the player is moving, we want that box to actually move, right? So we're going to say player.x is equal to player.x plus the player's speed. So we talked about earlier inside the player object up here we got a player speed right here. If you guys change that, it'll make the player go faster down here. Like it'll update, it'll make it so it updates the player so that they move quicker throughout the course there. And then right below this if statement, we want to update where our enemies are constantly. And we're going to say var I is equal to 0 as just an initialization, var n is equal to enemies dot length. And then we're going to say for all of our enemies, we want to run a function. I'm going to use E and I as like these placeholder values. You guys can say element and index if you want, but I'm going to use E and I. Right after, right in between these parentheses, go ahead and put a pair of curly braces and then bump this down here. And then inside of this function, we're going to basically check if there's collision with the player. So we're going to say if check collision between the player and the element. Then obviously the player just hit one of the enemies and we want the game to stop. So we're going to say game live is equal to false, alert, you lost. And then we want to reload that location just like we did before. Because they lost, we want to reload the game there. Okay, and then right outside of this if statement, but still inside that for each function, we want to say element, e dot y plus equals e dot speed y. So we're basically saying for each enemy we want to update their position by their speed. So like if this guy's moving at 1 pixel per second or something, keep updating him at 1 pixel per second. And then we'll say if e dot y is less than or equal to 10. So basically, if they get too high or too low, we're going to reset that enemy so that they don't basically it's like cutting off the boundary here. So instead of just constantly going forever, it'll like bounce back up. And we'll just say e dot y is equal to 10, and then e dot speed y is multiply equal. So basically just multiplying that value by -1, so it resets the speed. And then we'll say else if e dot y is greater than or equal to the game height, like the total game height which we set earlier, minus 50, then just go ahead and reset that as well. So we can say e dot y is equal to game height minus 50, and then down here we'll say e dot speed y is also equal to that multiply equals -1. So it just resets where that guy's going. All right, so that's it for the update function there. And then down here inside of the draw function, this is where we actually put the guys on the screen. Okay, so ctx dot clear the rectangle, and basically what this is doing is just channeling ctx, which is this box here, and it's saying clear everything. We're going to redraw stuff on the screen. We're going to say 0, 0. So basically target everything, game width and game height. And then redraw everything with a certain, redraw the player here. So we're going to say fill style is equal to, and basically this is the color of the player. I'm going to go ahead and make our player, if you guys remember the RGB, it's 00 FF00 is going to make this guy green, and then we're going to fill in that area. Y. So basically what we're doing is we're accessing our player object, and we're just placing in, we want it to be at this position, X and Y value, and then with a height and width of that much, okay? And then we'll say we want to draw in our enemies now, so ctx.fillStyle is equal to, and basically make the enemies like any color you want, but I'll make these guys, let's say we just had a green character, so the enemies can be red, so we'll say FF0000. And then we want to do this for every enemy, so we need to make a little for each function. And in here, we'll say EI just like we did before, and we'll just basically fill in the rectangle for each one of these enemies. W and then E dot H, just like that. And then the last thing we need to draw is the goal. So we'll say fill style is equal to one again. I'm probably going to make it blue. So 0000FF, and then you know, put in the values for it, just like we did above. Okay, and as long as I didn't miss anything, if I refresh here, yep, so it's working completely. The code seems like it's working. Let's just test it out real quick. So you notice every time I click, it's actually moving the character over, and it looks like the enemies are bouncing at like the speeds that we set for them earlier. And if I run into one, it says you lost. And let's see if I can't quickly make it to the end here. I think I'm going to cheat if I can't make it in time right now. Alright, and then it says you won. So the game's working great, and we wrote about 146 lines of code, which isn't bad. And that'll be it for this video. Your challenge would be to change the speed, change some of the colors, and kind of make this level look a little bit more difficult than it actually is. Alright.